A man from Denver, Colorado, had an ambitious idea to write a book about churches all across the United States. He began his journey by first flying out to San Francisco and planned to travel eastward from there. While visiting a particularly large church in San Francisco, he started taking photographs and jotting down notes for his book. During his exploration, he noticed something quite unusual: a golden telephone mounted on the vestibule wall. What really caught his attention was the sign next to it, which stated $10,000 a minute. Intrigued, he sought out the church's pastor to inquire about this peculiar phone. The pastor explained that this golden telephone was a direct line to heaven, and if he was willing to pay the hefty price, he could have a conversation directly with God. The man thanked the pastor for the information and continued on his journey. As he visited more churches in cities like Seattle, Denver, Green Bay, Chicago, Milwaukee, and other places across the country, he found similar golden telephones with the same sign. Each pastor he talked to gave him the same explanation. Eventually, his travels brought him to Texas. Upon entering a church in Fort Worth, he was surprised to see the familiar golden telephone. However, this time, the sign next to it read "Calls, 25 cents. Intrigued once again, he approached the pastor of the church and asked, "Reverend, I've been to many cities, and in each church, I found this golden telephone which I was told is a direct line to heaven. Everywhere else, the cost to talk to God was $10,000 a minute, but your sign says 25 cents a call. Why is that?" The pastor gave him a warm smile and replied, "Son, you're in Texas now. This is God's country. It's a local call." A young guy decides he doesn't want to go to work, and instead, he chooses to play golf. He's at the second hole when he notices a small frog sitting close to the green. He doesn't think much of it, and is about to swing his club when he hears, "Ribbit, 9-iron." He looks around, puzzled, as there's no one else around. Again, he hears, "Ribbit, 9-iron." He stares at the frog, thinking this is quite odd, but decides to see if the frog is right. So he puts his current club back in his bag and picks up a 9-iron. And guess what? He hits the ball, and it lands just 10 inches from the hole. He's totally surprised and says to the frog, "Wow, that was incredible. You must be some kind of lucky frog, right?" The frog responds, "Ribbit, lucky frog." Feeling curious, the man takes the frog with him to the next hole. He asks the frog, "So, what do you think I should do here, frog?" "Ribbit, use the 3 wood," says the frog. The guy pulls out a 3 wood, and incredibly, he scores a hole in one. The man can hardly believe it, and is lost for words. By the end of the day, he realizes he's played the best game of golf in his life. He asks the frog, "What should we do next?" "Ribbit, go to Las Vegas," the frog suggests. They head to Las Vegas, and once there, the man asks, "All right, frog, what's the next move?" The frog says, "Ribbit, play roulette." When they get to the roulette table, the man asks, "What should I bet on?" "Ribbit, put $3,000 on black 6, the frog advises. This seems like a really long shot, but after the golf game, the man thinks, "Why not?" Amazingly, he wins a huge amount of money. He uses the winnings to get the fanciest room in the hotel. He turns to the frog and says, "I'm so thankful. You've helped me win all this money, and I owe you a lot." The frog replies, "Ribbit, kiss me." The man figures it's a small price to pay for his good fortune. So, he kisses the frog. But as soon as he does, the frog transforms into a beautiful 28-year-old woman. And that, Your Honor, is how your wife ended up in my hotel room. So, there was this young lady who was just married. She was feeling quite jittery about her wedding night because she had never been close with a man before and wasn't sure what to expect. As they were lying in bed together, She nervously turned to her new husband and asked, "Honey, I'm not really sure about how this works. Could you help me understand? I really want to make sure I do everything right." Her husband gave her a kind and comforting smile. "Absolutely, sweetheart. I'll explain it in a simple way. Let's imagine your private area is like the prison, and my private area is like the prisoner. Your job is just to put the prisoner into the prison." The bride nodded, feeling a little relieved by this explanation. They started to be intimate, and everything seemed to be going well. However, after a short while, the bride let out a small giggle and said, "Honey, it appears that the prisoner has managed to escape." The husband grinned and casually turned to her. "Well, in that case, we'll just have to lock him up again," he replied, and they continued their intimate moment. After some time passed, the bride chimed in again. "Honey, it seems like the prisoner has escaped once more." Her husband, now feeling quite confident in the situation, wasn't fazed at all. "No worries at all," he reassured her, and they resumed their closeness once again. But a few moments later, the bride couldn't help but mention again, "Honey, the prisoner has escaped yet again." This time, the husband turned to her with a smirk. "Hey, it's not meant to be a life sentence." I threw this housewarming party yesterday evening. It was quite a bash. The following morning, I stumbled downstairs, still groggy from the night's festivities, and to my surprise, I found this guy sprawled out on my kitchen floor. He wasn't really someone I knew well, more like a friend of a friend who had shown up. I nudged him gently and said, "Hey buddy, looks like it's time to head back to your place. Let's get you up." I put in some effort to help him stand, but he just collapsed back to the ground as soon as I let go. It was clear he was still feeling the effects of last night. I asked him, "You're obviously not in any state to walk. Tell me where you live, and I'll drive you back." In a slurred voice, he managed to say, "I live over at 24 Longhouse Avenue." So I gathered all my strength and helped him up again, aiming to get him to my car. But it was like a comedy show. Every time I tried to let him stand on his own, he would just tumble down in a heap, right back onto the floor. This must have happened about 10 times, and each time I was thinking to myself, this is like an exercise routine I never signed up for. Eventually, with much huffing and puffing, I got him into my car and drove him to the address he had given. We reached his place, and getting out of the car was another ordeal. He fell down 3 more times before I could even get him to the front door. By this point, I was pretty much dragging him along. When we finally made it to the door, I rang the doorbell, dreading the thought of explaining this situation. His wife answered the door, looking a bit perplexed. I quickly explained, "I'm really sorry, but your husband had way too much to drink at my party last night." She nodded, not entirely surprised, and replied, "Yes, my husband does have a habit of getting utterly drunk." But then she looked around and asked, "But where's his wheelchair?"